Thanks for tuning in to Howe's Things, the podcast and radio show from the David A. Howe Public Library, recorded right here in Wellsville, New York. I'm Ally Fessmeyer.
I'm Nic Gunning. Ally, how are you?
I'm pretty good.
Getting used to that new name?
Working on it.
So where are you in the process of like calling all banks and companies and Social Security trying to like make it happen?
I'm in the process where I have the form and all the documents that I need to send to Social Security, and they're just sitting on my desk and I've done nothing with them.
It's always baffling to me how there's really no process to do that. It's just kind of like...
You just go for it.
Just tell a lot of people and hopefully they'll believe it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. First married Christmas. How was it? How'd it go?
It was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
No weather threw things off for you?
Not much anyway.
Okay, that's good. It was, we didn't have any like trees fall or anything, but it was really windy here and super, super cold. That was the thing. It dropped like from 40 to like -5. And we had big trees in our yard like swaying, and so we were kind of nervous, but nothing happened. Pretty uneventful overall.
That's good.
Yeah. Yep. Did you get anything good? What's your Christmas haul?
I got this red cardigan that I'm wearing right now.
Oh, nice. Okay. I got some clothes, yeah. I also got a sweater, and I got a lot of cool T-shirts and a lot of cool socks. I'm wearing Charlie Brown socks right now.
Oh, nice.
So,
That's nice.
you know, yeah, I did all right. Well, this is our first episode of 2023, so here we are. Still feels like late 2019, but, you know.
Yeah, really. I
what
think
are you
it
going to do
always
about
will
it?
at this point.
This is also the last episode we'll record when I'm in my 30s. So after next week, you'll have to let me know if I'm slipping. If I'm just on the deep decline into old age.
If you just start forgetting things.
Yeah. Yeah, going to bed at like 6 p.m., having dinner at 4, that kind of stuff, you know, the cliche stuff. Yeah, well, anyway, it is a New Year episode. So today we're going to be talking about some of our favorite things of 2022. So I don't know about you, but I wasn't strict about like this has to be something that came out in 2022 so much as these are things I read and watched and liked in 2022.
I think it would be too hard if it was only like these are things that came out in 2022.
That's true. It would be very limiting.
Very limiting.
So that's what we're going to get into a little bit later in the episode. But right off the bat here, let's start by opening up our books and see where our bookmarks are at. What have you been doing? What have you been reading? What have you been watching? Louise Penny, I assume?
Louise Penny.
Okay.
I finished, not the most recent, but the next most recent. So the one that just came out in November, there's like a forever wait on the holds list on Libby because, you know, everyone's very excited, understandably.
Yeah.
So instead, I've been listening to The We Free Men, which is one of the Discworld
Oh, like Terry Pratchett? Is that? Okay.
It's the first of the Tiffany Aching sub-series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Deep cuts. I've picked up that series before, but I am always a little like stymied. Like, where does this fall? Like, what's the good entry point? I don't know. Plus, I'm a baby about fantasy. I'm always like, eh.
But what I found is like I'm not a huge like fantasy person. Like my brother is like, give me a 1,000-page book, 500 years of backstory. I'm so excited.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay.
But Terry Pratchett, I've found they're short enough, and most of them are playful enough that I find them easy enough to get into and just kind of pass through and be like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
here we go.
Length is definitely the killer when it comes to something that you're not 100% invested in, and that's what I'm finding right now because I'm reading Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. This is part of the Expanse series. It's been on my list for a long time. My wife read it and really liked it. I have several friends who are like, oh, you got to read it. And it's one of those ones, like with Dune and others, where I really am invested in the plot, but I think the character development is so weak that to get me through the lean times of like things that I'm not super into, it's just not there. It's a real pet peeve of mine when you have a character who I feel like all the characters are interchangeable. Like they play specific roles, but their dialogue and their personalities are not distinct enough to really make them stand out. And when you have a book like this that has so many factions and so many different things at play, I really need that anchor of a character that I'm into, you know?
Yeah.
Something like the Wheel of Time, like Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time books. That's a massive fantasy set. Even the first book, you know, is just a big, massive undertaking. And it has elements that I'm kind of like, all right, let's move it along. But those characters stand out so crisp, you know, from each other and from the page that it's like you kind of know what you're into when you're following Rand or Matt or whatever. And I'm just not finding that in Leviathan Wakes. And it's really, I'm hitting this point where I was like, I either have to just give it up or I have to really like buckle down and read for like hours at a time to get through it.
And so what tends to be your kind of go-to when you're like uncertain about a book? Are you like a completist, we just push through for the most part? Or are you like a life is short, we're just ditching it?
I used to be, like for a long, long time, I used to be like, look, I've started this and I will finish it no matter who it hurts, you know? And this job kind of broke me of that because I'm trying to keep up with things that, that people are interested in, things that are popular, book clubs we're doing or whatever. And I just reached this point where it was like, I don't have time for books I don't like. I'm reading this one with a couple of friends in a sci-fi book club we do together, so I don't want to let them down. But
the party is counting on you.
Yes, that's right. But I do sometimes, and I did with this, I went and found a synopsis, like a detailed synopsis, like a spoilery synopsis of the plot, and went through that up to as far as I am in the book, and we're kind of like, okay, I've got this a little bit more straight in my head. I think I can push through a little bit farther, but I'm right on the cusp of phoning it in.
That's hard.
I hate to admit it. Anything else? What else is on your... Finish anything good over the break? Or?
I just finished Four Aunties and a Wedding.
Okay.
Which is the sequel to Dial A.
Yeah. Okay.
So, which is actually... the first is on my list of...
Oh, you read the second one first?
Well, no.
Oh, you mean it's on your list for later in the episode.
List, so we'll talk about it more later.
Spoiler alert.
The sequel was not quite as good as the first one.
Well, that happens.
It was fun.
That does happen. Okay. So. I read a dumb one. So in the last episode was our cozy Christmas episode. And I read this donut. It's like a donut shop mystery. This is what I read in 2021. And I really liked it. And I was always like, oh, I got to go back and read some more of those. So I finally did. I read one called Strawberries and Cream Murder by Susan Gillard. And it's just about this lady who runs a donut shop who happens to solve crimes,
See, every time you talk about this series, I just have so many questions.
Okay. Hit me. What do you got?
Like, why?
I don't know. How
did this happen?
This one, so the one that I'd read with Bo 2 years ago was like book 40 or something. So all the characters were really in place. And then this is people aren't married who are later married, and the reason why. This could have been a standalone because it was very specific to this woman had this donut shop and she specializes in all these kooky donut kinds. And she had a protege that she sort of took under her wing and told her the recipes, and they were going to be partners. Protege went rogue and opened her own rival donut shop. So there's a lot of bad blood there. Well, the protege winds up murdered with a strawberry and cream donut nearby, and she's allergic to strawberries, and it's a whole thing. So this one, it actually kind of makes sense that she's involved in this murder because she's kind of a suspect.
Right.
As it goes on, there's a flimsy, I am a consultant for the local police, and they call me in. But there's always donuts involved, so I don't know.
Say no to a good donut.
But the thing is, it's such a good palate cleanser because it's a perfect length. And while it's cheesy and what you would expect from a donut-themed murder mystery as far as quality, I feel like the writing is strong enough that I am genuinely interested in how the murder's going to resolve. And you don't they're so to the point that you're not spending a ton of time in a weird donut mystery. So
fair enough.
I would read more. Read more because it's a good maybe 2 sittings. I mean, you could knock it out at one if you wanted to, but 2 sittings and you're done. You've had a fun little mystery to solve, and so I can't complain. And then I'm reading Fool Me Twice, which is it's a Jesse Stone book series started by Robert Parker, continued by Michael Brandman after Parker's death. It's pretty good so far. I wanted to talk to you about Gwenpool. Have you read any Gwenpool? I think we've talked about this. I can't remember if we've done it on mic.
I have not read
still
any
nothing.
Gwenpool.
Okay. So the initial series makes up 5 trade paperback volumes, and I read the last of them. It's just such a clever series. I don't know. It's very meta because she, the hook of the character is that she's in our world and she kind of falls into the Marvel universe. So she knows everybody's secret identity. And as it progresses, she has a little bit more power to sort of pop in and out of stories and can kind of use the comic book panels to her advantage. And it's the kind of thing where it could really easily get away from you, as a writer, because it's limitless in a lot of ways, and that's tricky. But I feel like they really do a good job of using it to the strength of the character and the story. So I really like the series. I think you would too. So if we get copies here, you got to read it sometime because I think you'd like it. But I finished Gwenpool, and there's more. She shows up in other places, but I finished the initial series. Are you reading any comic book, graphic novel stuff lately?
I have read some graphic novels lately, partly because I've been working really hard to hit my Goodreads goal,
Yeah.
And so around late November, I was I'm maybe 20-ish books behind.
Yeah.
So I need to pick up the pace and read some graphic novels. And I actually read a few recently that did end up on my favorites list. I read a lot of good stuff at the end of the year. I feel like I don't really know.
Wow.
I don't know why,
Okay.
but all of a sudden. So
were they things that have been on your list all year and you're finally like, I'm going to do it, or just
some of them? Like I finally read Z to the Space Girl, which my brothers have been like, you got to read this for probably years now.
Yep.
And I really liked that.
It's good. Yeah.
I read a couple other things that were fun. I read the first of that, like All Summer Long by Hope Larson. That's like about a middle schooler who plays guitar and wants to start a band.
I think I read that. Boy, I don't know. I'll have to check. It sounds familiar. I know that author. I've read her other stuff.
I read the first one and it was pretty fun.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Are you watching anything good?
So I just finished Stranger Things.
Oh. Okay. And?
It was very good.
Okay.
It is on my favorites list for the year.
Okay.
I also now I'm like, what now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
What am I gonna do?
There kind of is nothing really like it. It's a really good blend of mystery and characters and suspense and supernatural and sci-fi. Like a lot of things come together. That being said, I did not enjoy this most recent season.
You did not?
I thought it was one of the weaker of the seasons. How did it land for you?
I liked it overall.
Did you? Okay,
I feel like there were like specific moments or movements that I really appreciated.
Okay.
And maybe that sort of like helped me view the whole thing with enough rose-colored glasses that I didn't notice other things that maybe were bugging you.
Okay.
I also felt like, I don't know, certain characters that I particularly like, I feel like had especially a chance to shine this season. So that maybe inclines me toward it.
I really liked the mall season, and I feel like that's one that tends to be less popular. But I thought that was fun. Did you like that one?
I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I was a little sad that some of the characters were like some of the usual groupings were kind of split up.
Yeah, that's.
But the new groupings were fun, so like, how mad can I be?
Well, that's very like, I don't know if they did it on purpose, but that's such a fantasy trope. I don't know if they were trying to do that a little bit, like splitting up into different groups and things. I don't know.
It's like the Two Towers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So watching that, I watched a couple of movies lately. Did you watch Knives Out?
I did watch Knives Out.
Have you watched Glass Onion yet?
I haven't seen it yet. There's a high likelihood that I will watch it tomorrow.
Okay. So it's you got it in your sights. I watched Knives Out in theaters here in Wellsville back when it came out, and really I had a good time with it. I liked it a lot. Glass Onion, I don't know. I guess I won't get into it since you haven't seen it. I liked it. I enjoyed watching it. At the end, I just get very tired of Agatha Christie tropes. We talked about this with Bo last week. That's not a setting, like a setup that I particularly enjoy, and there was a lot of that in here, purposely, intentionally, and well done. But I feel like that's kind of, you like it or you don't. So that stood out to me as something that was kind of like an irritant, but a lot of great performances. It's a great cast, so I'll be interested to hear what you think. I don't mean to be a downer, but I also watched The Fabelmans, Stephen King, like Steven Spielberg autobiographical movie. Have you heard of this or seen it? I don't think so. It's Michelle Williams, Paul Dano. It was very sentimental. Like, it felt to the point where it could have been like a Hallmark movie. I felt like, so I don't know. I wanted to like that. I was excited to watch it, and then I didn't like it so much. But it's like, it's got a lot of Best Picture buzz and everything. So maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. I think we have to be open to that fact.
I'm just ready for you to start singing.
Yeah.
Hey,
did you ever see Black Panther?
I still have not.
Still no.
Well, it was like we were gonna, and then there was holiday season, and so that's kind of how that went.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And Black Adam, still no.
Still no.
Wow. Okay. All right. Those are your choices. I can't write them for you. You have to do it yourself. Shall we look at some book news?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to pull up the young adult hardcover bestseller list. No peeking, no cheating. Okay, here they are. Number 10, 7 weeks on the list, Blood Marked by Tracy Dion. Bree and her friends go on the run to save her love, Nick.
Oh.
Do you know this one?
I don't. I'm peeking at the cover, though, and it looks like I'm wondering if it could be a sequel to something else.
Oh, normally it says, but yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Number 9, Alice Oseman, 7 weeks on the list. I was born for this. Angel meets the frontman of her favorite boy band, The Ark. Do you know this one?
I haven't read it, but I know about it.
Is it connected to other things?
I assume so, because everything kind of is.
Right, yeah.
But
that's what I wondered.
I could be wrong.
Okay.
I don't know.
They sure know what they're doing with this cover, because it could not look more like Heartstopper if they tried. So I think they know what's up. Hey, look at that. Number 8, 29 weeks on the list, Love List by Alice Oseman, one we read together.
Yes.
Georgia, a British teenager, works on accepting her Aero Ace identity. Number 7, 24 weeks on the list, Family of Liars by E. Lockhart. The prequel to We Were Liars focuses on Katie's mother and aunts as teenagers in 1987. Ooh.
I feel like there's been a lot more buzz around We Were Liars lately.
Really?
Like it was
like
it
coming
was
back?
quiet for a long time, and then there was like a little pop.
This is a name I know, though I haven't read any of her books. Number 6, 4 weeks on the list, 1,000 Heartbeats by Kira Cass. Annika and Lennox are lovers on opposing sides of an impending war.
That sounds like a very Kira Cass
What are you going to do?
book. I say having read zero Kira Cass, but
but you just know.
But
okay.
I just know.
Yeah, okay. Number 5, 18 weeks on the list, Lightlark by Alex Astor. Every 100 years, the islands of Lightlark appears, and a deadly competition called the Centennial takes place. So it's like if the Hunger Games and Brigadoon had a baby, it would be this book. Okay.
I haven't heard of this at all, but the premise kind of sounds exactly like,
go either
Forrest,
way.
so
Could be
other
fun.
way,
Could be
books that I
fun.
know. Yeah, I don't know.
Number 4, 256 weeks on the list, One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This is a juggernaut, obviously, 256 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this just going to live here permanently now?
It might. For 5 students, a detour into detention ends in murder. So it's like a murdery breakfast club.
Exactly.
Number 3, 12 weeks on the list, The First to Die at the End by Adam Silvera. In this prequel to They Both Die at the End, Orion and Valentino attend the premiere of Deathcast in Times Square. I've sure seen this book a lot.
I've seen it around a lot. I have not read it.
Okay. Number 2, 4 weeks on the list, 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. 6 friends on spring break road trip to an I don't know what just happened to me. 6 friends on a spring break road trip in an RV are the target of a sniper.
Oh.
Huh.
I wonder why.
Well, right.
What did they do?
It's an intriguing title because we got 6 friends and it's called 5 Survive. So not everybody's making it out of that
That's
RV.
not good.
So I don't know. Have you ever been in an RV trip?
No.
Never? In your whole life?
No, like I've road tripped.
Okay.
And I've slept in an RV, but never the two meet together.
They haven't happened together. My senior trip in high school, we one of our I had a very small class, and we went in an RV from Michigan to Florida.
Okay.
So that was an adventure, and then I went on a bunch of RV trips with my grandpa, including one to New York State. The first time I ever came to New York State was in an RV, and that was when I was like, wait a minute, there's more than just New York City.
A classic response.
Oh, ignorant me. Number 1. When was the first time you came to New York State? Just when you moved here? Was that it?
I think so.
What, were you like 8?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1, 21 weeks on the list. Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shay Earnshaw. Sally, the new queen of Halloween. Wait a minute. I know a Sally who's the queen of Halloween, but this is not about her. Sally, the new queen of Halloween Town, must save her town from a sleeping curse. This is like Nightmare Before Christmas.
I think it's
fanfic.
I think it's related somehow.
How do you feel? Oh, that's definitely her. Yeah, that's definitely her. How do you feel about The Nightmare Before Christmas?
I've never seen it.
Really?
I've been told a lot of times that I should and
you
I would
should.
love it, but I haven't gotten to it.
I don't. It's not for me. It's not my thing. I've only seen it once, and I was like, whatever. But how do you feel about Tim Burton-y-ness anyway, like Corpse Bride or anything like that? Have you seen that kind of stuff?
I haven't seen much Tim Burton stuff.
Okay.
I feel like what I have seen,
you're okay with.
object
What do you
to,
remember?
was fine.
What Tim Burton thing have you seen?
That's a really
Beetlejuice?
good question. No.
Batman Returns? Big Fish?
Mm-mm.
No, none of those.
There's definitely something, but I don't
Dark
know
Shadows?
what it is.
Okay. We're going to figure this out together.
Well, one day.
What about Wednesday? Oh, the Addams Family? Any of the Addams Family
I have
things?
not seen the Addams Family.
How about Wednesday on Netflix?
I've been thinking I should watch that. Maybe that will can
That
fill
could
the
be.
Stranger Things
Yeah.
hole, you know?
It might. I've only seen the first episode of that, but I liked it quite a bit. I keep
Okay.
meaning to get back to it. It's weird. It's like when I started it, I watched maybe the first 15 minutes and it felt like a CW reject. And then I watched it a little bit more on another day. I was like, let's give this a chance. And I was kind of into it a little bit more than I was expecting. So I could see going the distance on that show.
Okay.
All right. Oh, that's it. That's number 1.
All
That's
I
number
have
1.
to say about this, though, is that if Sally hasn't read it, she definitely has to.
She should. She should. Yeah, I know she watched the sequel to the one, what is that called? Hocus Pocus, and was kind of like whatever about it. So, yeah, I know. She does need to watch this. All right, let's do it. This is our end of year recap. It is really weird to me that it's like the end of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm in denial.
Yeah. I feel like we've both had like big years of transition because
That's fair.
like at the end of December, so like the last like 10 days of December, we moved here to Wellsville. And that was huge because we lived in the house that we lived in for, most of the time that we've been married. So it was like 12 years or so that we were there. And we moved and we've been settling in. So this is like the end of our first year here. But that was a big change, you know. Change in school for my son and just like a very different everything. It's all been good and positive. But I think maybe that has extended the time for me. It's felt like it's been like 5 years in this past year. And you got married.
I got married.
So you were engaged. How long were you guys engaged? I can't remember now.
5 or 6 months?
Yeah.
What's
so a lot
May
of
to October.
Yeah, a lot of 2022
like
you were engaged and like planning a wedding. So
when I think about the fact that we got engaged and married in the same year, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It feels like there was some kind of break or like time in between, but no, it was just May to October.
That's about ours was a little shorter or a little longer than that. We got engaged in March and then got married in November of that year. So it was still like all one calendar year, but we kind of had the whole summer, to figure everything out and all that. But yeah. So that's a wild transition for you.
Yeah. It's a big change. I'm also just thinking how glad I am that I never have to plan a wedding again.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, until like we have a kid who's getting married or whatever.
Then you'll have to. Yeah.
Yeah. But like when I think when I think about the fact that we got engaged and married in the same year and all the wedding planning nonsense that happened between, I'm just like, I'm a little shook.
That's a big undertaking. I know. I just remember by the time like we got married, I was so ready to be done with that part of it. Like I remember we had some like, should we just elope? Should we just do it? And we didn't.
Yep.
But it was more, I feel like it was more than just a casual, like, should we just forget all this and get married?
I feel like you get to a point where you so strongly want to just do that. But by that point, you're like, but we've already put so much work into this. Might as well just see it through.
Yep. So have you had time to read and watch things during this year? That's the question I have for you today.
Surprisingly, sort of, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I was so what we're gonna do is we each kind of combed through our movies and our TV shows and books that we read this year. We're gonna kind of hit a top 5 on those. But it was crazy for me because I was going back through like Netflix viewing history and like my Goodreads books, and it just again emphasized the fact that this year has felt so long because I was shocked to see some of the things that I had read that came out in this year, and I was like, how is that possible? But where do you want to start? Let's do books.
Okay,
let's do it. All right, so.
Handy dandy mushroom
now,
notebook here.
I have 5 that are in no particular order. Do you have a top 5?
I have a top 5, but they're not in a particular order.
Not in any particular order. Okay. What do you got? Hit me with one of your favorite books you read this year.
First, I have Garlic and the Vampire.
Okay.
This is a graphic novel, one I read recently.
Okay.
And basically, it follows the story of a garlic, like
a clove of
head
garlic.
of garlic.
Okay.
That was brought to life by a witch.
Okay.
And it's adorable, I have to say.
Okay.
So cute. And it lives with all these other similarly
garlic
living vegetables.
And
they discover that there's a vampire living not far away. And they're like, well, clearly, Garlic, this is your job to deal with.
You have to take this on. Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility for a little garlic.
Garlic is extremely anxious.
I bet.
But she accepts the challenge.
Okay.
And I won't spoil what happens, but it has a good end.
Okay. How did you come across this?
I had read some graphic novel, like some Juve graphic, maybe Zeta the Space Girl or something like that.
Okay.
And had marked it on Goodreads. And it was just like a similar kind of recommended one. And I was like,
let's
intriguing.
Do it. Yeah.
And so I put a hold on both that and the sequel, Garlic and the Witch. And they came in and I read them both in one day.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Recommend.
Nice.
The art style was very cute.
Okay. Yeah, that can really make or break it. I just read volume 3 of Lore Olympus. Are you like totally up to date?
I'm totally up to date.
Webtoon. Okay.
So I don't even remember what stuff is in volume 3.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing is like I keep seeing people being like volume 2, yay, or like this thing, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
To like chart it, I use like the confines of the collective. Actually, I read it on Webtoon, but volume 3 is, I want to say it's like 50 through like 70, 75, like on Webtoon.
What kind of stuff is happening?
Well, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to spoil it for people. But that reminds me because the art in that is just so good.
I know.
Like the limited color and the style and everything, it just really is well suited for that. And I just saw our copy of volume 3 came in. So if you haven't been reading it on Webtoon, we have it here. I'm not usually a huge nonfiction reader, but I see that 3 of the books on my list this year are nonfiction. Oh. So I'm going to give you one of those. This is one of the first. I got this for Christmas last year, and I read it in January of 2022. and that's The Boys by Ron Howard and Clint Howard. So, I love retro TV and movies and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that just like that nostalgia for that is a big part of like when I was a kid watching Nick at Night, and now, I just love that kind of thing. And I love Ron Howard movies. He's one of my favorite directors. And so to really like hear him go through all of this early stuff and talk about movies like Eat My Dust and Grand Theft Auto, which are just these obscure little like indie movies that he made with Roger Corman, but I love them. They're just so fun. And the book really does a good job. It's like a dueling narrative. He and his brother Clint Howard each kind of take a chapter and talk a little bit about what was going on. So to track their careers and to get all this inside scoop and just like, hanging around the set of The Music Man, and everything was just
casually,
Yeah.
As you do.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of how it is. It's like Happy Days, the Andy Griffith Show, and all that stuff. Just like all these things sort of incidentally happening. It was really well written. And I listened to about half and half. I read half and listened to half. And the audiobook is read by them, too. So that's just like another factor, So I really like that. And I would recommend it, I mean, really to anyone who likes classic TV and movies. But it's just a good story regardless. So that was an early contender on my list here for favorite book of the year.
Excellent.
What else you got?
All right, I have Dial A for Aunties, which we alluded to a little
bit
earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know how to characterize this book because it's simultaneously a rom-com and like a murder, crime, exciting drama thing.
Okay. All right.
So the main character accidentally kills her blind date, who is a creep, so like we don't feel that bad for him, And she freaks out and basically calls up her mom and aunties and is like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And they decide that rather than going to the police, they need to deal with this themselves.
Okay.
But they're also wedding vendors, and they have a wedding the next weekend, and the body magically shows up, at the wedding location, and shenanigans ensue.
Sure, of course they have to, yeah.
It was a great time. So funny. So absolutely hilarious.
All right.
So
that's good.
I definitely recommend.
That sounds fun. One of my more serious ones was one called Forest of Vanishing Stars. This is by Kristen Harmel, and we do have this here in the collection. It's a World War II story, which I feel like I've read a lot of in the last couple of years. But this one is interesting. It has I don't want to say supernatural, but the setup is that this woman who has kind of she senses danger. Okay. She essentially kidnaps this little girl from her German parents and kind of raises her in the woods and trains her to survive. Like these are the plants you can eat. These are the plants that you use for medicine. Mm-hmm. This is how you avoid detection. This is how you hunt. Like all this stuff raises her to be sort of a survivalist. And the girl kind of ends up inheriting somehow this like sixth sense, this sense for danger. So when the war breaks out and the town is occupied and everything, she's kind of alone in the woods. And she's just kind of making her own way. She was raised in isolation, so she hasn't really had a lot of interaction with people. And she ends up sort of falling in with this group of Jewish refugees who are just kind of like, I don't know what they're doing. They're just like in the woods. And so she kind of takes a leadership role with them. And, it just goes on from there. They meet different factions. Of course, they interact with Germans. And, there was a whole thing with her birth family and why she was taken to begin with, which comes into play. So it's pretty layered. There's some romance in there. It doesn't always avoid sentimentality. A couple of times I'm like, all right, you got to, so go ahead. But overall, it was really good. It was really good. It was really interesting. And I think it's one, if you're not an avid reader of historical fiction, sometimes that can be a little off-putting. A book that's, this World War II set, like it could be sort of like, I don't want to do that. This, I feel like, was a good maybe entry point for somebody who hasn't read a lot of that kind of thing, because there's a lot of historical facts, and obviously the history of it really plays a pivotal role, but it's a very readable, very easy kind of book to get into. So, yeah, it was a good time all around.
Excellent.
Do you read a lot of historical fiction? Or just old books? You just read old books.
I mostly just read fiction that is historical. But I read the occasional historical fiction.
Yeah, okay.
But I wouldn't say I'm like, battering down the doors, give me more historical
I tend to gravitate towards it, I think. Yeah. Well, what do you got?
All right. Next up, Zeta the Space Girl, which we've already discussed a little bit. And again, this is one my brothers were like, this is amazing. You have to read this. Yeah. And I just didn't get to it until now. Yeah. But I thought it was really charming and fun. And just, like, full of that kind of childlike wonder, like, when you're a kid and you just think about, like, monsters and aliens and robots. And, like, it just really kind of revived that feeling for me of being a kid and having that kind of imagination. And so I was like, I had a great time.
Yeah.
It was a blast.
Yeah, I agree. I've read a couple of volumes of that. I haven't read everything. I know there's a crossover with Mighty Jack, so I haven't read that. But one thing that impressed me, I read this with my son. He loved it and everything. It's great just as a graphic novel. It's a great graphic novel for really, I think as young as 7 or 8 could get into it. But I think the thing that makes it next level for me is it is genuinely good sci-fi. Like it's not just like, oh, it's a sci-fi setting. Like I think the world and some of the elements of the plot that it explores have the makings of like genuine sci-fi, and I think that's kind of they could have got away with not doing that, I feel like, but it has that added value of being a genuinely good sci-fi adventure. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good pick. Another nonfiction here, Carnival of Snackery by David Sedaris. So David Sedaris is he's right up there. If he's not my favorite author of all time, he's in the top 2 or 3. I mean, he really every time a new one comes out, I just have like devour it. I have to go for it. And this dates back to my very first library job, and I was a teenager back in Michigan. One of the librarians there were like, "Oh, if you haven't read David Sedaris, you have to read it." And so I did, and just ever since, I've just patiently waited for when a new thing comes out. He's one where his readings in the audiobook also make it next level. So if you're an audiobook listener, I would say go with that. Just maybe not while driving. But Carnival of Snackery is the second volume of collected journals. So the first one was called Theft by Finding. And that kind of is just his journals from the early days. And this is more recent, right up to, I want to say it goes up to 2020, something like that. So pretty recently here. This would probably not be one that I would recommend for somebody who's never read his books before, because it is snippets and it's shorter stories, and there's a shorthand to it where you have to kind of know about his family and his sisters and his partner and just life in general. So I don't think this would be a good entry point, but as somebody who's like read everything he's ever written, for me this was just perfect. And it was great as an audiobook, like walking to work and stuff, just listening to these like anywhere from 3 minutes to 10 or 15 minute stories that were just sort of like day in the life stuff. I really liked it. So I would recommend it to David Sedaris fans, but I think it works better as an audiobook or something that you're going to pick up and just read a couple entries. This is not the
not
kind
a
of
pound through.
No, I think it'd get pretty tedious sitting there and reading 50 pages of it at once, because, it's incidental kind of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, so maybe a deep cut, but I love that one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I've read like 2 short excerpts.
Oh, okay.
By David Sedaris. I thought they were funny.
Yeah.
But I don't remember them because it was a long time ago.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think you'd enjoy him. He's just so clever, and his delivery is top notch. Yep. What else we got on your list?
All right. Also on my list, we have Nevermore: The Trials of Morgan Crow.
Like
I feel
Neil
like
Gaiman?
No, it's
What am I thinking?
Like
Is that Neverwhere? I don't know.
Yeah, that's Neverwhere.
Okay.
It's like a J fantasy story. This is one I read earlier in the year.
Okay.
Also a recommendation from my brothers. They just tend to give me good recommendations.
I guess so. Yeah, get them on the payroll.
I know. This is also like another one that I think I really enjoyed because it was so imaginative and different.
Okay.
And I feel like I haven't read as much fantasy in recent years because after a while I started feeling like it's a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of getting tired of it. But this felt really like a different kind of world and playful and unexpected, and so I just really enjoyed it.
Okay.
And I think it has broad age appeal. So
okay, that's cool. One that I read more recently was called Hurricane Girl. It's by Marcy Domansky. I believe we did talk about this on the podcast a bit. It's a pretty short read. It's still in our new collection here. It hasn't even come off new. It's a pretty recent, but it is about this woman who, early on in the book, there's a hurricane, hence Hurricane Girl. She winds up in sort of an unsafe situation. She winds up with a head injury.
Oh.
And the rest of the book, she's dealing with a head injury, but it's interesting because it's really not the forefront of the book. It's not like, this girl has a head injury. Let's see. It's like she's sort of living her life, and you spend the whole book not knowing who's driving the ship. You know what I mean? Like, is she making poor decisions? Is she making decisions she wouldn't normally because she's dealing with a very recent head trauma? And so because of that, it's like it's intriguing, it's interesting, but there's also a little bit of an air of menace or dread because you just don't know. Like you feel like you can't trust her the whole time. Like, is she looking out for her own best interests? Is she being safe? You just don't know. And so because of that, it's a really engaging, like you just have to know where it goes and what happens next. So that's it's a pretty quick read and one that I think was just really clever. So I would recommend that one. I think it's a good time.
Those are always fun ones that kind of like keep you like, what's gonna happen?
I know, and it definitely keeps you guessing because anything can happen. You know, when you're dealing with someone who's not behaving in a rational way, you can't really apply typical like logic to a character like that. So yeah. So is this your final?
This is my final one.
5. Okay.
Okay, we have Enola Holmes and the Elegant Escapade.
Wait a minute. After this year together podcasting on this show, there's not a Louise Penny book?
I thought Louise Penny went without saying. You know what I mean? I'm like,
so that's
we're
just
picking our top 5 favorite books.
Okay.
And I'm like, Louise Penny hasn't been a book. It's been like a journey that I've
a
gone
lifestyle.
on this
Okay.
year.
All right. So Louise Penny does
Louise
make
Penny
it
is just
in
the
spirit.
atmosphere in which I lived this year.
Okay. All right. Then I will allow it. Anyway, Enola Holmes.
Okay. So I read the original Enola Holmes books, I think roughly as they were coming out.
Okay.
And I thought they were fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely loved them. And so keep in mind, this is like middle school, early high school for me. And then there's been like the movies the last couple of years.
Yes.
2 of those have come out that I thought were pretty good. Made some questionable choices in terms of adapting the book material, but you know.
Okay.
And I come to find out that after a gap of like 10 or 11 years, the author just was like, yeah, I'm going to write some more Enola Holmes books. So there are 2.
Does that decision predate the movies or like as it's being adapted, is she like, you know what, I've got more to say about this, do you think?
I think they're roughly contemporaneous.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much that affects the decision.
Like, how do they play? Like, do they feel like Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmesy stuff? Like, how YA? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they don't feel too like campy YA the way I feel like YA things sometimes can. They feel very, I guess, natural and authentic, but they also are like from the perspective of a young to mid-teen girl, and so they definitely feel that way, and they don't feel like Conan Doyle's writing style, but I feel like they're plausible for how Sherlock Holmes' sister would
so they
think
could sort
and
of
act.
like inhabit the same world, if not necessarily like the writing.
The exact same writing style. Yeah.
We're saying YA. I guess I always kind of pictured these books as more like a junior level, like 8 to 12-year-old. Is that not true?
I think they're a little bit of a crossover
Are
level.
they? Okay.
So, because I feel like I wouldn't have been sure until I walked down to the stacks and found the first one in the YA section. I was like, all right, guess that's what it is.
Well, it's impressive that she managed to stick the landing on that, because in the era of reboots, as we have been for the last couple of years, it's very hit and miss. Like, if you really can successfully go back to that well or not. But she did it?
I think so. I will say there's 2 of them out so far, and I read both of them. The first one did feel a little funky. Like, so many things about it felt so right and so much like the first one. But some of the dialogue just felt a little odd. And I don't know how much of that is because I just don't remember the original ones that well because it's been a long time. Or I think it could also be that the main character is alone for so much of the original series that there just isn't a lot of opportunity for her to talk to people in just kind of like a casual way. And so that's just like a new and different thing, or like... But the second of the 2, I did not have any issues with. Okay. The dialogue felt fine. Everything was good.
Okay.
So.
It's funny how in reboots, you know, whether it's a book or TV or movies, how if something is off, it has that stink of fan fiction. Like, not in a good way. Like, some fan fiction is great and fun, but sometimes it's just sort of like, really? And I've noticed that with a lot of remakes. I feel like it just sort of, it's like, yeah, this is the right characters, but this just feels wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, not to go down a giant, rabbit hole, but like, I remember feeling very much that way when I read Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Of like,
oh well, yeah,
it's the characters, but it didn't. It felt like fan fiction more than part of the same story.
Yeah, I get that. That's how I feel about Star Trek Picard. I hate you, Star Trek Picard. Worst.
Called out.
I do. I hate it so much. I said the other day that it was the worst of Star Trek, and my wife was like, "It's not even Star Trek." You know what? She's not wrong. She's not wrong. I would erase that from existence if I had the power. Gosh, should we just talk about new Star Trek? No, no, we shouldn't. My final book is nonfiction, and it is, I must say, by Martin Short. How do you feel about Martin Short?
He's in Only Murders in the Building, and I like
That's
that.
right. He is. Yeah. Like, but is that pretty much it? Like,
That's all I'm aware of offhand that I've seen with him. But it could be that he's sneakily been other things that I just don't recall.
He just pops up in places. I mean, I've always loved Martin Short, like dating back to the Three Amigos era and everything since. So reading this book was really interesting because I knew kind of next to nothing about him other than he's, Canadian, kind of came up in Canadian theater and things like that. But reading about some of the tragedies in his life and like some of the twists and turns in his career and everything was just interesting as a story. But I also feel like it was just very well written, and he managed to talk about, loss and success and everything without it coming across schmaltzy or anything like that. I love this book. I thought it was really great. And I read this just recently. So this was sort of one that's sneaking in just under the wire at the end. Let's move on to some TV shows. What are you watching this year that really landed for you?
Well, as already mentioned, Stranger Things.
Okay.
Stranger Things.
Yeah, because this is, if people don't remember, this was like all the time that Stranger Things has been going on.
I've been like, no, we're not.
But sort of like aggressively, like
I
will never.
I would say there's definitely an undercurrent of antagonism
because it's so poppy. Because it's so
partly because it's so poppy.
Okay.
And when it came out, I had a number of friends who were like, "You gotta watch this," and I was like, "You know what? I'm not going to."
I've been guilty of this. Yes.
And so I definitely did that, but I also am generally not super into gross or vaguely violent or horror adjacent things.
It has all of those things, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Yeah.
And especially when I was a teen, which was when it was coming out, I had even less ability to deal with those things than I do now. So there was also kind of an element of self-preservation of we're not doing this. But then when season 4 came out and I started seeing the clips just popping up in my Facebook feed, I was like, this does look kind of good. So pretty much October through December, just watched the entirety of Stranger Things.
Had your husband seen it?
Yes.
Oh,
he'd seen all of it.
Okay.
So he graciously chose to rewatch it. Yeah.
This most recent season, those episodes were so long.
They were so long.
I don't know. That one, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what? Here's another thing that really hurt my watching of it.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I thought that this was the last season.
Okay.
I think it was because it came out in two little, it was the first 4 episodes and the last 2, however that worked out. And I think the marketing around the final episodes of the season, I thought we were watching the end. And so I was very much like, how is this the end? I don't understand.
It does have some last season vibes.
It does.
In its presentation and in the fact that the episodes are so long. I feel like that's the kind of thing you do when you're we gotta finish.
So I was watching this as the culmination of this thing. And then when it ended and it was clearly to be continued, I was like, what? So that threw me off. So that's on me. That's on me.
That would definitely change
but
the
I didn't like it as much. I already mentioned Star Trek, and they're not on my list, but I really enjoyed Star Trek Lower Decks, which is the animated Star Trek Prodigy, which I've been watching with my son. My wife and my son and I have all been able to watch that together, which is super cool. And Star Trek Strange New Worlds is just great sci-fi. So those are all, like Louise Penny for you, the cool modern Star Trek, not Picard. The cool modern Star Trek is all kind of just to be understood.
Permeating the year, right.
That I was a fan. As far as sitcoms, I feel like this was the year of sitcoms for me because I've been really loving Ghosts, which I think you would love.
Okay.
You haven't seen that at all,
I have not.
Okay. Really loving Ghosts. That's a CBS thing. Really enjoying Young Sheldon. And Never Have I Ever is a Netflix sitcom. Have you seen that at all? It's Mindy Kaling.
I've seen previews.
I see, but not the actual
show.
I've been really into that, and they really have successfully. It's a whole. There's the YA tropes of
of course,
these two very different guys and how's it all going to work out. But it's that's kind of reductive to say that's what it's about because it's not. But that is an undercurrent of every season of the show where it's a kind of this triangle. But it's a pretty complex show. I feel dealing with loss and coming into other cultures and things. There's really a lot of moving pieces to it, and it manages to stay clever and funny and kind of keeps you guessing and surprised. So I've really liked that this year. Have you watched any sitcoms, any comedy kind of things this year?
That's a really good question. Let me look
Thank
at my.
you.
Let me look at my
Consult your
list.
mushroom notebook, please.
I don't have any like sitcom-y things.
Okay,
on
that's all right.
list.
It wasn't required.
And this was the thing where we were like, oh, TV shows. We'll pick some favorites. And
Yeah.
I was like, did I even watch any TV shows other than Stranger Things this year? Which I think really goes back to the not having any concept of of when is what.
Sure. But yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, what do you got on your list? What do you like?
I have Moon Knight, which was one that I definitely forgot came out this year.
Okay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it.
I feel like we haven't talked about this. I didn't know you loved Moon Knight. Okay. Yeah. All right.
I thought it did a lot of different things from how a lot of the Marvel stuff normally goes.
That's true.
Which was really cool. Yeah. And I thought the actor whose name I forget.
Oscar Isaacs?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought he did a really good job.
He did. I had a little trouble buying that Oscar Isaacs is a hapless nerd, but he was good. He was good.
Oh my gosh.
So what about it? What?
I don't know. I thought the story and kind of the mystery elements and how they slowly revealed things I found really compelling. And then when you get to some of the end stuff that's just like totally whack and it's like also there's a hippo and like things like that.
True.
I had a great time with.
So was that your favorite like superhero? I guess we'll just talk shows. Was that your favorite superhero-y show of the year?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because all the superhero shows that came out this year, I did
like what?
quite like.
Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk and Moon
I was
Knight?
also
Is that
a
it?
big fan.
Is it just the three of them?
That's all I can think of.
I mean, there's like ongoing DC stuff, Titans and stuff like that, but that's basically it. Okay, but so you think Moon Knight edges out She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel?
I do have She-Hulk also on my list of favorites.
Okay, all right.
So they're so different. I feel like it's a little hard to compare.
Yeah, it's true.
So
well,
I
would
really
give it to She-Hulk. I would give it to She-Hulk over Moon Knight.
Yeah. I mean, I thought She-Hulk was fantastic.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. In the beginning, like I wasn't quite getting the tone. Like it took me a little bit to, and there were certain expectations I had based on the comics and stuff that I had to kind of like get over in my mind. And I'm glad that I did because I eventually I really liked the show and I loved the ending.
Yeah,
I thought it was really clever. I think. Like I was expecting a little bit more of like the law side of it to be more serious. Like I don't know why I just got in my head that like it was gonna be a little bit more like that. But I just thought like eventually I really liked the tone. I thought it was really funny. I thought she was really funny. I thought the way they used like Emil Blonsky and Bruce Banner and stuff was all really well crafted. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. Ms. Marvel didn't make your list.
See,
because you love Ms. Marvel as a character.
I loved Ms. Marvel as a character, and I thought the show did a good job, even though I was concerned about them changing the powers, etc. Yes. But I feel like just kind of like as a show, I was more wowed by Moon Knight and She-Hulk.
Okay, I get that. Ms. Marvel, I think, fell into that trap of the first season being basically a prologue. You know, like we didn't really get at least what I wanted from it until kind of the last episode or so.
And I think it might have ranked a little higher had it gone more for the stuff from the beginning.
Had it kind of hit it hard. Yeah. I don't really understand why it took the path that it did, but yeah. I'm sticking with comedies for a minute because I've always liked the show Blackish, but I've never seen Grownish, which is like the college set spinoff. And I got to the point in Blackish where they sort of branch out, and they're all on Disney Plus now. And so I've been kind of watching them together. And this is like my go-to show when usually my wife and I, we kind of like watch everything together, which is maybe too cute. I don't know. Do you and Caleb watch like all things together? Do you have like
we watch
his show and
most things together? Most things that I watch, Caleb also watches.
I see.
But not all things that Caleb watches do I watch.
Okay.
I just don't feel like I have as much time to invest in watching. And there's a lot of things Caleb's interested in that I'm kind of
you're like, you're gonna take a pass on. Yeah, usually for Hillary and I, our interests just sort of line up. So like if there's a show that I want to watch, odds are she wants to watch it too. And I'm sure she'd like Blackish, but like this was just one that like when I have 20 minutes or something like that, that I'll like pop it on. Or if I'm here and I'm just eating lunch at my desk, like that's kind of my go-to. So yeah, Grownish was kind of like, yeah, whatever. But I really got into the first season. I'm in the second season now, and it's just fun. You know, it's just like a nice, I love an old, I'm not great at binge watching. Like it's not something that I'm good at, but I can with sitcoms. You know, and so like Blackish or Grownish, especially if I'm like doing something else and like have it on, I can really like pound through those. So those cracked my list this year. I liked them quite a bit.
Excellent.
What about you? What do you got?
All right, let's see here.
I'm loving this mushroom notebook. It feels very on brand for you. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when I had to retire the rubber ducks, I knew that I had to find something of equal caliber to take its place.
And you thought mushrooms. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can't fault you.
All right. I'm going to skip over She-Hulk because we pretty much already talked about that.
We covered it.
Caleb and I just watched Dash and Lily, which is like a Christmassy... I don't know if it's the first season of something or if it's just kind of like a one miniseries-ish.
Yeah, it's
one and done kind of thing.
It is its own thing. There's several of the books, but the series I think was only and that's based on the first book.
Right, because once I found out there were several books, I was like, are they making more of this, or are we just done?
Yeah, it was like canceled, but I think we watched that last year, which it was pretty good. It was pretty good.
It's just like a fun Christmassy kind of high school rom-com, but I thought the like almost You've Got Mail aspect of like them writing notes to each other but not knowing each other yet was really fun.
That was fun. You know, the books, which I haven't read this book, but I read a bunch of the other books. This is written by David Levithan and Rachel Cohn, and they also wrote like Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist and other things like that. We actually had Rachel Cohn, we interviewed her on the show back in the All the Book Show days, and so it was really interesting talking to her about how those books are written, because they are like a chapter is from Dash's perspective, a chapter is from Lily's perspective, and Rachel just wrote all the Lily stuff and David Levithan wrote all the Dash stuff, and they would kind of like round robin it. Like there wasn't a huge plan. She said that it was kind of like she'd get his chapter and she'd write the next one and so forth, which I think is a really interesting way to write books. I always think
it's so cool, and I love when books do that and they're successful, because sometimes they just like the styles feel too different or like it just doesn't quite work. But when books do that and like it really works, I just find it really satisfying.
Yeah, I agree. I would have watched more of the Dash and Lily show. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I thought the leads were really well cast. And they managed to make it charming without too cutesy. And
I would definitely have taken a second season.
It was good. It was good. On the heavier side, I watched The Patient. This was a Steve Carell, Domhnall Gleeson show.
I feel like I remember you mentioning this. Yeah. Was this like you binged it while you were sick kind of a thing?
No, but I did binge Dope Sick while I was sick. But no, this was it was a drama, but it was half hour, which was brilliant. I feel like that really worked for the tone of the show. And it was Domhnall Gleeson plays a serial killer who's trying not to be a serial killer. Oh. And Steve Carell is his doctor. And he's obviously holding the fact that he's a serial killer. This is like the premise of the show. He's saying like there's some other bad habit that he wants to quit. And finally he's like, I got to be honest. We really have to do this for it to work. And so he abducts Steve Carell and like chains him in the basement and is like, we're going to stop me from being a serial killer together, but you're being held prisoner. So it was
no pressure,
real,
you know,
it's like every episode the screw just gets turned more and more. And it's like, how can this resolve? Where can this go? You know? And it was really well done, and I was really satisfied with the ending, which I think in a show like that, it's almost next to impossible to end that well, you know, because like it really, how could it end well for everyone? You know, like how could you, all the things you want to happen, because you're kind of rooting for him, you're kind of rooting for the Steve Carell character, like, I don't know, you know, and I feel like the way they resolved it really was satisfying, and I was impressed by that. So yeah, I'd recommend it.
Cool.
It's a good one season watch, you know. Did you got anything on the serious mystery murder side?
Other than Only Murders, like I feel like, and I haven't watched a ton of that this year, but I feel like that's really been the only serious or stuff that I've had.
All right. What were some of your other favorites this year?
Alrighty. Let's see here. Consulting my mushroom notebook.
Yep. Get to the mushrooms.
All right. We've got Heartstopper.
Oh, okay.
Which I'd seen some trailers for this when it came out, and I knew that the books had kind of taken off.
Yeah.
And so I did read them first. I like read them all pretty much in one weekend, and then I was like, all right, I could do some more of this. Let's watch the show.
Okay.
And I think it's a really good adaptation of the books, and just well cast and fun. Has like that really sweet, just kind of relaxed vibe that I think the books have. Okay. So I really enjoyed that.
And I feel like we talked about this, but you were pretty happy with the casting too, right?
Yeah.
Did you think that it was...
I think that all the casting, there's like one character that I'm like, this isn't at all how I pictured them, but it works.
Oh, okay. So. All right. This is one that I feel like maybe I'm the only one in the world who would put this on their favorite, because I didn't hear anything positive about it. But there was a show on Netflix called The Pentaveret with, what is his name? Mike, you know, he was like Austin Powers. I don't know why I can't think of it. It's driving me crazy. But Mike Myers. And Austin Powers came out like right when I was in high school, and it was like probably like one of the earliest PG-13 movies that I saw, and I just thought like it was so funny, and I felt like it was kind of naughty, and I don't know. I've just always liked Mike Myers, probably from my like immature teenage years.
Okay.
But the Pentaveret was him. He plays like 5 or 6 characters, and the basic plot is there's the Pentaveret, this group of 5 who kind of secret society that controls everything.
Oh.
And one of them dies, and so they're trying to like fill that position, and then it kind of becomes a murder mystery within that. It's so crazy and chaotic and stupid, but it somehow worked. I don't know. I liked it. This was one where I was working an election, and I downloaded all the episodes like on my tablet, and so in between voters, I watched the Pentaveret. And so I watched it all in one day, one really long day. Probably why I liked it as much as I did. But so I don't know who I would recommend it to. I guess people my age who liked Mike Myers in the mid-90s probably would see enough of that in it to enjoy it. But whatever you say about it, it was very original, and I appreciated that. I got one more. How about you?
I'm out because I did She-Hulk.
Oh, you're out. Okay.
I did
well,
She-Hulk with Moon Knight.
Then I watched one called Life and Beth, and it was Amy Schumer and Michael Cera on Hulu. And it was just a really good show about Amy Schumer's character sort of like, I don't know, coming into her own, and she meets Michael Cera, and they have kind of a non-traditional romance. And it was just really good. It was one of the shows that I was like, next.
Awesome.
How about movies, Allie?
Okay. I had to... I struggled a little bit to think of what movies I watched this year. I was like looking up like what movies came out in 2022. And I was like, which of these did I see?
Yeah.
But I managed to pull something together.
What do you got?
Okay. So this is not a movie that came out in 2022.
All right.
But I just recently watched Klaus with my family.
Oh,
have you seen it?
No. Santa Claus
But
theme?
it's like, it's Santa Claus themed. And it has this very like tall tale feel of like, it's kind of like an origin story of Santa, but it's very like, it's not smarmy or like Santa-y the way you would expect. Like it feels very un-Santa-y, but then it's an origin story of Santa. Okay. Which I thought was really fun. Huh. And it was just like beautifully drawn and animated, really funny, and ultimately really like sweet and heartwarming. And so I had a great time watching it. Okay. It's a fun Christmas movie, but I feel like you could watch it at other times of year and still enjoy it.
Grant Morrison, his comic book writer, has like a Santa Claus origin that I've always wanted to read. It's an interesting thing. And I know like L. Frank Baum, who wrote The Wizard of Oz, also has a Santa Claus story. And then, Tim Allen. All right. Interesting. I would not have guessed that to be on your list, but here we are.
It was really good.
We've already kind of hit some superhero stuff this year. And I guess you haven't seen a lot of the superhero movies that came out this year.
I really haven't, other than,
Did you see Thor? And
I saw Thor.
We know.
Doctor Strange.
You saw Doctor Strange, yeah.
Been there, done that.
I was really having a hard time trying to pick my favorite superhero movie of the year. It's definitely not Doctor Strange, and it's not Wakanda Forever. But between Thor, Love and Thunder, The Batman, and Black Adam, I'm really torn because they're all completely different, and I feel like all of them have had sort of mixed reviews. But Thor, Love and Thunder, I just really liked the balance of humor and seriousness. I thought like there was enough of Thor being like cool and strong and powerful, but also playing with him being kind of, dense. I feel like worked really well. Did you like that one?
I did. Yeah. Okay. I thought it was good.
Yeah. So I had a great time with that. The Batman, I didn't need another like dark, moody Batman origin story, but something about how it all came together, like, the big like epic showdown at the end and everything. I remember watching that in the theater here and like about halfway through it being like, I think maybe I love this. And I do really think that it was good, and it's a contender for me because I didn't expect to like it. And I found myself like in the last couple of weeks being like, I kind of want to watch The Batman again, which is not a thing that I would normally do. So
I definitely forgot that came out this year.
Yeah. Did you like it?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would have made top 5 had I remembered, but I liked it.
Okay. All right. And then Black Adam. Black Adam is another one where I was like, I guess I have to watch this. Like just being a DC fan and a Shazam fan, like I guess I have to watch it. But I went into it with nothing, just like it was just checking a box, though I still haven't seen Morbius. And yeah, I really liked it. I thought that it handled the whole there's a big element of it where Black Adam shows up in after however long being like in Solid Rock, and comes back and is kind of the protector of this country, and the country has like an occupying force in it, and there's a really kind of a deep conversation around like being occupiers in this country and why haven't superheroes done anything about that, and it had a depth to it that I wasn't expecting. And I felt like Dwayne Johnson varied his performance. It wasn't just like The Rock is Black Adam. I thought he actually was like acting it. And, I loved Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate. I thought it was really well cast. And it kind of seems like it's dead now with all the changes at Warner Brothers, DC Comics and all that. But I was down for Black Adam too. Like I was ready to watch it. So I don't know. I guess by the thinnest of margins, I got to give it to The Batman as my favorite superhero movie of the year, but it's a tough call for me. So I don't know. You got to keep me up to date when you watch the other ones.
I'll definitely let you know.
But the other ones on my list here, I mean, one is super obvious, and that's Top Gun Maverick. It's like it's like the kind of blockbuster movie that we don't get anymore. I feel like it's just so big and popcorny and just like, I don't know. I never have I seen a movie that understood the assignment as well as Top Gun Maverick, because it's very similar to the first one. Like it's a very like you can see obvious parallels with characters and plot and everything, and yet like it manages to bring things new and be fun. And it's just like, not that I ever wanted a sequel to Top Gun, but this is exactly what a sequel to Top Gun should be. And bring it on. Give me number 3. I liked it quite a lot. What do you got on yours?
Alrighty. Let's see. I've got Coco, which is another fun animated movie I watched with my family recently.
All right.
This is one that it came out and I was like, yeah, I want to watch that.
Yeah.
And just didn't until the last month.
Yeah. My appreciation
really
for Coco has kind of grown. I saw it in theaters here and was like, yeah, okay. The music's kind of grown on me a little bit, and yeah, I think that's a good choice.
Yeah.
That's a good choice.
I thought it was fun and handled its emotional beats well.
Yeah, true. I don't know, a lot of recent Pixar-y stuff I haven't really been down for. I don't know. That was probably the best of recent stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I just haven't been as much on the Pixar boat lately with like things that have been coming out. I see them and either I'm like, meh, or I just don't get around to seeing it. Like,
Yeah. I mean, Toy Story 4, back when that came out, that was one that I was like, why would you ever make a Toy Story 4? And I liked it. I thought it was really good. And Lightyear as well. It's like, I don't know why you'd do that, but it was a pretty decent sci-fi. But I don't know. They just haven't landed for me like they used to. I don't know what that's about. But did you see Turning Red?
I haven't.
I haven't seen that one either.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen it.
I don't remember if Luna was Pixar or not, but I thought that was really meh. And I don't care about Encanto either, but that's not.
Do you have some kind of a personal vendetta against Encanto?
No, it's just whatever, I thought the music was like on its own is fine, but like it was like a complete stop of action and let's do music in that movie. And I was really disappointed with Strange Worlds also, which I think is just Disney, not Pixar. But that's the one that just came out, and it was just such a, I don't know, paint by numbers, Didn't like it. I mean, you got to give it props for the diversity in the cast and the stories that it's telling. I mean, that was a huge step forward, but like, it doesn't mean it's a good movie,
That's always, I feel like especially disappointing when you're like,
I know. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was thinking the whole time. I was like, why can't this be better? But yeah, just the writing I felt like was really weak. So I don't know. I got a couple more here. What else you got movie-wise?
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I haven't seen that.
You haven't?
No.
This seems like a movie that you would rush
I
out to see.
know. And there's been so many times when we're like sitting Christmas Eve, we were like, should we finally watch this? And then we ended up with something else, which made my list. But yes, a million times I've been almost about ready to watch that movie and just haven't yet. All right, I got to watch it. Why do you like it? Tell me why.
I don't even know where to start. Like, there's so much going on in the movie. Like, I mean, it's Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like that's a lot to bite off.
Yes, it is. Yep.
But I thought in terms of like a multiverse thing, in terms of multiverse thing, it did what Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness should have done.
Oh, you didn't like that movie? Oh,
it wasn't my favorite.
Oh, okay. It's the first time hearing of it, but okay.
So the multiverse stuff I thought was really cool, and I also thought that like kind of the crux of what the story about was really satisfying, and like there's mother-daughter dynamics that I thought were really well handled and interesting, and it like both lands some really powerful emotional beats, but also is like consistently so absurd. I don't know how you can pull that off.
Okay.
But somehow they did.
Okay. Well, all right, you just pushed it up to the top of my list. The movie I watched instead of that on Christmas Eve was called Vengeance. It's the one that was written and directed and starring B.J. Novak, like best known from The Office.
Okay.
Ashton Kutcher is also in it. And it was one... Do you know anything about this movie?
I do not.
Okay. B.J. Novak plays a guy he's like a reporter, and he's trying to break into like, you know, the like true crime podcast kind of world. He's just trying to get a leg up in the whole like media side of things, and he's a very kind of a vacuous character, and he has all these like meaningless relationships and stuff, and he gets a call from this guy being like, hey, your girlfriend's dead, and it
oh boy,
to him it's just a girl that he, you know, like had a quick little fling with, and that's it. So he ends up going down to Texas, and then it kind of becomes, he's like, wait a minute, this could be it, this could be like
my gosh
thing. And so
seems like kind of a weird response.
Yes. And so he gets pulled into that, and it goes in directions that I didn't anticipate. And I felt like it was just such a kind of profound in a lot of ways, like what it says about culture and what it says about just the journey his character takes. I feel like is something that I haven't really seen on screen, and it really nailed it. So I don't know. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but I would really recommend that.
Does sound really
maybe the best movie I saw this year. I don't know. It's up there. It's up there.
Hard to say.
Yeah. Any more for you?
I think I have a few more. The Wedding Season. Which I think...
Who is that? Who's in that?
I don't actually know who any of the actors are. I think there might have been like another either movie or show called The Wedding Season that came out this year.
Huh.
This is the one that's like a Bollywood adjacent rom-com.
Oh, okay.
And
I think I know what you mean.
It was very good.
Okay.
I feel like it successfully paid homage to Bollywood without like going too deep.
Yeah.
And it's like a little fake dating thing, and of course, you know how that's going to end, but I thought it went through kind of the process of that really well and just had fun characters, and it was just like a movie that I watched and I got done and I was like, yeah.
I love that.
That's
a good feeling. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we hit mine. So what else you got?
I also have Do Revenge. Did you
know
see
that
anything
either.
about this?
No.
Okay. This is like one of those like teen high school movies. Okay. And it has Maya Hawke and like Kayla Mendez.
Sure. Okay.
And
yeah. Okay. I haven't seen it, but I do know what you mean now. Yeah.
It pitches itself as being like, oh, these two girls who are really different, they team up to get revenge, to do revenge.
Yes.
On these two people who have wronged them. And it kind of does that, but about 2/3 of the way through the movie, it just takes this turn and like goes in ways you don't expect.
Okay.
And it was like, it somehow delivered on what I anticipated it being, and also totally threw me for a loop and gave me something I didn't even know I wanted.
Okay.
So it was bizarre.
Huh.
The most bizarre teen movie I have ever seen.
Well, okay. All right.
It was a good time.
Okay. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was harder, I feel like, than other years trying to come up with like a list of things, but there was quite a lot good that came out this year, and I feel like looking back in retrospect, like there was a lot of good stuff that I watched and saw and read this year. So, yeah. Anything that you're anticipating in next year, like movies or books coming out that you're on your horizon?
That's a really good question.
I feel like I used to know these kinds of things. Like it used to be more clear, like, oh, I can't wait for that. But yeah, I don't know that I really have anything. So I was wondering if you did.
I think the next season of Heartstoppers that's released in 2023.
Okay. And
so
whatever Louise Penny does.
Whatever Louise Penny does.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'll be eager and expectant.
Yeah. Okay.
But beyond that, I don't know if there's anything that I'm like super aware of on the horizon.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Did you get into any of the Star Warsy or Disney Plus kind of shows? I know like Willow's out there and National Treasure and
I haven't seen either of those. Although I do keep hearing like regular updates about how good they are from my husband.
Okay.
But we watched Obi-Wan.
Oh, yeah.
Which was earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And I had a great time.
I did too.
I thought it was fun.
I did too. Definitely things like if you're going to sit here and pull it apart, there's lots of things where you can be like, well, but yeah, I agree. I was really excited about that one. That was definitely my favorite Star Wars thing of the year.
It was not what I was expecting, but it was. I'm happier with what it was than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I just feel like Ewan McGregor is just so watchable regardless. And to see him like be that version of Obi-Wan was... Yeah,
it was fun.
Yeah, and it took him long enough because I feel like he was talking about wanting to do it for so long and they finally were just like, let's do it. So we got it. Yeah, good year overall. Do you have reading goals for 2023?
My plan for 2023... is that rather than setting myself a Goodreads goal of like 104 books, I'm going to back off a little bit and try to read some more like nonfiction and some other like a little bit weightier stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to finally read Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer this year.
Okay.
That I've been meaning to read. I've read excerpts, but that I've been meaning to read the whole thing for like the past 3 or so years and just haven't.
This is going to be the year.
I think this is going to be the year.
I'm definitely with you as far as like not putting pressure on it because I feel like I have... like, especially like the last couple of pandemic years, I don't know, somehow I feel like more pressure. Like I have to get more, I have to keep going, and I end up being stuck in things I don't like, or I end up like stressing about it rather than like reading to relax and just like gravitate towards things I like and not reading things that I don't like or don't want to read. So that's the name of the game for me in 2023.
That sounds good.
Okay. Also coming in 2023, we're spinning off a podcast, Ally.
We sure are.
So we can drop a little bit of information about that now. Ally and I have been talking about, taking the podcast into the next year and the coming years and what we want to do, what we want to focus on and everything like that. And just feeling like it's time to sort of set the How's Things format aside and go in a different direction. So what we're planning here is a new show called But Have You Tried? And did I get that right? Did I say? Yeah. You looked at me like I said it wrong. We've been bouncing around ideas about this so much. So give us a little taste of the premise. What are we going to be doing?
So the idea is, which if you've been listening for a while, you may have noticed that Nick and I have somewhat similar tastes, but also somewhat diverging tastes. Yes. And a number of times we'll have conversations where he'll be like, "What? You've never seen this thing?" And I'll be like, "No." And so the idea is that in the way we sometimes are like, oh, well, now you have to watch this, whatever. One of us will bring something to the table and say, okay, here's, whatever book or movie or whatever it is. And we'll try it out, read it or watch it or whatever it is. And then the other one will have a turn to say, okay, this was good. But have you tried instead? Whatever strange thing I've never heard of.
Exactly. And we find it, particularly off mic when we're talking, there's all of these things, not just limited to books or movies or whatever, where we'll be like, what? How is that possible? So we're going to explore that. And the format, as Ally said, is going to be, it'll be like my pick. Then we'll kind of catch up on things we're reading and watching and talking about so that the person has time to kind of bone up on what we're talking about. Then we'll come back together and discuss Ally's pick and so on. So it'll just kind of continue in that cycle. So the links for that aren't up and everything. This is just sort of a heads up that that's coming. So once all that's settled, we'll tell you how to subscribe to that and everything. The How's Things feed is going to stay here, but it's going to be more like we'll use this for special things, like Christmas episodes and that sort of thing. So that's what's happening in the next couple of months here. So we'll have a few more episodes as is, and then we'll start telling you how to find the new show and the new feed and all that, and you can kind of have both on your radar there. But I'm excited about it. I feel like it's going to be as we've talked about it, because we've been talking about it for probably 6 months at this point now, and I keep thinking of things like, oh no, I got to save that because that'll be a perfect thing for me to drop on you, and you have to.
I feel like I'm going to watch so many weird things in 2023.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. So anyway, look for details about that. We'll keep you posted as that comes up. And in the meanwhile, you can stay right here listening to How's Things. We've got a few more episodes coming up at the start of 2023. And we'll continue to transition to the new format and the new show. Ally, thanks for diving into 2022 with me.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay, good. And again, kudos on the Mushroom Notebook. I think it's lovely. All right, gang, we'll see you next time right here on How's Things. So long.